just this vibe, and I love how you're dressed up so pretty.
I have to work every day, girl.
I
Gotta be
love
on.
it.
Hi, everyone.
Hey guys, welcome back to
Hey,
another
I'm getting all
episode
comfy.
of the Relationship Corner with Sarah and myself, Nereyda.
Yes, we are
Yeah.
here. And we were actually discussing a very important topic that we both feel actually is something that I think a lot of people have an issue with, right, Nereyda?
Oh yes,
It can be a
yeah,
little uncomfortable and a little daunting.
yes, yeah. So we're going to be touching on two topics today, right?
Mhm.
Because they intertwine. And the first one is, how do we know when to walk away, right? Or what was like the way that you said it specifically? Because I love the way Lucinda and you said it.
I wrote it down. I wrote, when do we know it's time to close the door on someone and move forward in our life? So this is about boundaries, you guys. Boundaries, scary. It's kind of awkward and uncomfortable because we have a lot of really close people in our life, friends, family, our loved ones, significant others.
Yeah.
Hey, Veronica, I saw you.
Oh,
Veronica's on. Um,
hey
and
Veronica.
it can be very intimidating not knowing when being able to like put a little bit of a separation because we feel like maybe how they're coming at us or what they're needing from us is just too much for our energy. It feels like it's draining us. You know, those emotional vampires, they may not fully understand that what they're doing is actually draining,
Yeah, yeah.
and they
But
kind
I
of
also, even in
Mhm.
this space, right, when we're in it, it's like we don't even know that they're doing it, right?
Yes.
So let's touch on that topic of when to close the door on a relationship,
Mhm.
right? Because even with that, like I've had friends ask me, like, when do you know when to just walk away? And it feels like it's very hard to even have an answer for it.
Mhm.
And even when I'm living through it, which is something that we talked about earlier, where it's like, oh, this is a really good topic because I'm living through it right now. Like,
Mhm.
how do you know? Like,
One of the things that I've had to go through is that exact thing multiple times, many times in my life, actually. And my problem was I never did anything about it until way later when I was like a shell of myself.
okay.
So, and that's not good. So I had to recognize first and foremost the situation at hand. So like, okay, when I'm around this person, how am I feeling? Right? It's kind of
Okay.
tuning into yourself. I didn't
Okay.
do that before, and I just allowed them to kind of take the energy from me
Yeah.
by constantly spewing out their stuff and me trying to help them, but they're not really listening. And I feel like
Yeah.
they're just needing um, an energy suck to make themselves feel better. And
Okay.
I'm an easy target for that.
What do
So
you think would be like the three things I guess that would pop up when you're entering that season in your life? Because I'm pretty sure it's not just like relationships. I'm pretty sure it's also like friendships, even
yeah,
family members. Like I've had friends cut off like their moms or like aunts and uncles. So at
yeah.
some point it's like, what are the three you think key things that it's like, okay, I think it's time for me to close this door?
Well, it's hard especially when it's your family. And that is, it's just, that's the creating the boundary part. It's just being able
Okay.
to, I don't know. With the family members and people that are like just always in your life,
Uh-huh.
um, how do you draw that line?
You
It's
know,
just being
we'll
able
talk.
to say, I say I allow people in my life, but you have to set a time limit for. Sometimes they just keep going on and on and on, and it's like it's a never ending thing.
Okay.
So I like to do time limits.
Okay.
So you set a limit for how much time you're willing to talk to them, and
Okay.
then
But that's
okay,
like, but that's also like before you officially close the door. Are you like on
right.
them? Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if you have family members that you're just never gonna, you're always gonna see them, right? Like You just,
Sometimes you can just completely walk away and be like, I'm not dealing with this energy.
yeah, I know, right?
Like, I'm not sitting on
Um,
that table today. Like at a family function, you know?
yeah.
I guess like even as I ask that, right? Like what pops up for me is what I've told friends too. Like one is boundaries is a great way to start where it's like, oh, you can set your boundaries before you officially close the door on that relationship. Like,
Mhm.
hey, don't talk to me that way. Hey, I'd appreciate it if XYZ. Hey, like I feel XYZ, right? So I'd feel like the first one would be boundaries. The second one that I told like friends is, and even that I tell myself is at some point you just know. Like, I think like there's a period before when you officially make that, okay, I'm officially like leaving or you're officially out of my door, where it's kind of like this period of like back and forth of the cons and the pros as to why you want them in your life and as to like why you don't want them in your life. And it feels like there's a little bit of that before you officially walk away. So the second one for me would be like be mindful of that, like back and forth,
Mhm.
And then the third one, I guess, like just talking out loud, right? Like it would be like be aware when you've actually hit the point where you no longer want to be there. And going back to what you were saying, like when it starts to feel very draining, when it starts to feel very like you're what's that word? Like dragging your feet to go see them, where you're like no longer excited to be in their presence,
Yeah.
right? So like those three pops up, but
Yeah. And I've dealt with me trying to help people and I say my piece over and over again. And I feel like, again, like what I said before, like that just really sticks with me. And I'm like, dude, I'm like literally giving you the blueprints on how to like fix your life and you're not listening to me. You know, you're not putting forth the action. You're not trying something different. So what helps kind of settle my mind a little bit is knowing that we are all just they need to walk their kind of their little
they
detriment
do.
because
Yeah,
that's their journey. So if
yeah,
they're choosing not to put forth action, then that's really going to be on them. And I can't allow myself I can't subject myself in that environment. So
yeah,
what you
yeah,
said, being very open at some point and be like, hey, listen, like, I unfortunately I'm unable to talk to you about that right now, or
yeah,
give a time limit of, hey, yeah, I'm here for you. Okay, I have to go, and then walk away. Don't just
definitely, yeah.
consume yourself in that spiraling.
So it would go back to not go back, but like even the action of saying no,
Hmm.
right? Where it's kind of like, oh, that's also a boundary.
I
It's
have
like
a
being
hard
mindful,
time with
or
that.
even like not just like the no, but also being aware of like, okay, it's time for me to leave.
That's hard to do for some people. That was
It
hard for
is
me when you're like empathic and people pleaser and that kind of a way. I'm definitely have evolved a lot more, so I don't have a problem with saying no to
yeah,
people. But a long time ago, like that wasn't the case, and I would just
yeah,
follow in everybody's holes, and I would get sucked in, and I was turning into their problems, and it was my problems, and I'm like, I can't allow this to happen anymore. As I grew and evolved and
definitely,
was
yeah,
changing my life around. So I think I I was recognizing certain people in my life were not rising me up. Like you said, you hit the nail on the head. How do you feel when you leave? Like, how do you feel? You feel
yeah,
pretty crappy, you feel drained. It's tuning into yourself. And that's what I don't feel like we do enough is
yeah,
listening to inside. I think there's so much
yeah,
noise going around. There's so much activity where we got schedules, we got this, we got that, we got a lot going on, but
definitely,
we're not tuning into how we're feeling inside. So when we're around other
yeah,
people, it translates then too. So we're now getting consumed with other people's things and dramas without going, hey, listen, or listen to yourself. This is making me feel a certain way. Maybe I need to kind of take a step back a little bit.
okay,
And we don't do that enough. So
yeah,
tuning into our feelings. So when we feel a little like around a person, not joyous,
yeah,
then that's a sign, right? That's
yeah,
listening to your intuitions but learning, being able to get the confidence to learn and speak up and be able to say your piece and with the boundaries, that's hard for people to do. That
Definitely.
takes a
Yeah.
long time to get there if you're that empathic people pleaser type person.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hard to do.
It
It's like
is.
easier
Yeah.
said than done, right?
Yeah. And I'm curious too for like anybody who's watching I would love to hear
hmm
their journey too, as well as, okay, like what do you think is when it's time to leave or when it's time
Yeah.
to like close the door on that person or that relationship, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we've all been there at some point in our lives.
Yeah.
So if you're watching it like right now or even afterwards, comment down below because we'd love to hear about it.
Absolutely. We
Let
would
us know your 3 like
Yeah.
bullet points on when it's time to walk away or when it's time to close the door.
Yeah. Mine was my divorce, my first divorce that I had. That one we didn't have any kids together, but I didn't listen. And then I listened to myself and I felt not good inside whenever I was at home. And I'm like, this isn't a good
Oh
feeling and
yeah.
I shouldn't feel this way. And then I
Especially when
made,
you're home, right? Like
yeah, that's
it's
your
where
safe
you're
place.
sleep, where you wake up. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I finally pulled the trigger and I went through with it. That was a stepping stone for me to finally find my voice. So sometimes you have to make some hard choices, some hard decisions, such as something like that. Or if it's a family member, you have to actually say, hey,
Yeah.
listen, like, don't talk to me that way, or I don't appreciate it. You make me, or that's a bad word. How about I
I was about to
feel
say,
this
Sarah.
way? It's like, you make
My
me feel
boyfriend
this. No, it's,
my boyfriend and I get into like so many disagreements
you
because he's
have
like,
to
"You
work
make
on your
me," and I'm
words.
like, "No."
And
Which is funny, actually. I have a story for that, but go ahead.
yeah,
No, because we're gonna get into like a whole other topic of like you and I
I
saying
know.
it's not the topic for today.
But when you have to say what you're trying to say, you have to use it the right way. So it's like, you make me feel, no, I wouldn't say you make me feel. It's,
Yeah.
when we have these conversations, I'm feeling like I'm not being able to say my piece. So it's kind of making, it makes me feel this way because our feelings
Yeah.
are valid. Everybody's feelings are
Yes.
valid. We
Yeah.
are all
Yeah.
allowed our feelings,
Yeah. I
but
just
it's
had an
hard to say it.
I just had an instance last week where I won't share, okay, for this one, right? Like I won't share too many details, but um I something happened and I had these feelings of like disappointment and these like feelings of being upset. And usually it's like, okay, I'm gonna dismiss it, right? Like it's inconvenient to just talk about this what just happened. And it
Mhm.
happened in front of one of my other friends, and my friend was like, you don't really get angry, do you? And I was like, oh, like this is a funny conversation because anger has been like a topic of my life for the last couple months. So we talked about it, whatever, and I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna practice sharing my feelings. But
Mhm.
one of the things that she was asking was like, oh, what's like the first thing that pops up for you as to like why you're not speaking up? And I'm like, the first thing that pops up is that it's just very inconvenient. Like, it's just inconvenient. Like, why bother to speak up about this? But no, like, it does matter. Like, it's hard. And I think at some point we maybe self sabotage in that way where we make excuses for ourselves. Like, oh, it's inconvenient. I'm not going to say it. But no, like, it's important. Right. And it was so crazy because, like, I spoke up, like, I shared how I felt. And again, using my I statements is how I feel. Like, I feel this.
Mhm.
And dude, I was freaking shaking afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? And it was just one of those, like, remembrance of, like, oh, it is hard. Like, of course it's hard.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll tell excuses to ourselves on, like, why not to say it. Or, like, we'll just stay in that narrative that it's hard and just, but it's like all of that too that pops up recently for me. It's like, yeah, you can suppress it and you can not say anything, but at the end of the day, you're the only one that's going to affect yourself.
Yes.
Right? Like all of that, it's like the repression, the suppression, like all of that creates its own illnesses in the body.
Mhm.
Right? So for me lately, it's been like, not that it's become easier, but it's become more of an added importance of, okay, who am I feeling these certain way about, or like where are my boundaries lacking? Because at the end of the day, it's like it does affect me, and that goes back to like self-love,
Mhm.
right? Like this is the
Yeah.
self-love that we talk about. Like yes, it's the bath, it's the facials, it's the going shopping, but this is like the main core of what self-love is. What's
Yes.
like that connecting with yourself.
Right. We're so kind to everybody else, and why are we not to ourselves? Everybody
Yeah.
else is allowed to have their feelings, but not us. That's not okay. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, recognizing that and be like, hey, yeah, that's actually true. Like, I'm allowed to have a feeling. Why
Yeah,
am I
which
always
is
putting
so
feelings
freaking
on everybody
interesting.
else?
Yeah. So yeah,
Mhm.
if you're watching and you're in any of these spaces and it feels like it's hard, like that's okay, 'cause it's supposed to be hard. Not supposed to, I don't like to use the word supposed to, but it is hard.
It's a journey. I mean,
It
life
just
is
is.
hard.
Yeah.
We're learning. It's a learning journey, and we're all growing and developing. And I have closed doors on had to close doors on people, but it's to protect myself, because I'm not going
Uh,
to I don't want to allow them to dictate me. And I still
yeah.
have my own things I have to take care of. So,
Yeah.
and I also, it helps me too, because it helps me to know that not everybody is all bad and not everybody's all good. So that's what makes it hard too, because we have people in our life that they're not all bad. So it's
Yeah.
hard for us to be like, oh, I don't want them in my life at all. Like
Yeah.
it's a little
Well,
extreme.
even to add to that too, it's like if we set boundaries or if we decide to close the door on that relationship or person, it doesn't mean that they're bad people,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like
no,
it doesn't mean that like they did something to like fuck us over, or it doesn't mean anything. It could just mean I just no longer feel fulfilled in this relationship. Like that's
right.
it. Because I've had relationships in the past and I've heard it too from friends where it's like hard to break up with somebody because they're so nice or they're
Mhm.
kind, right? Like I had a relationship where it's like, oh man, like you're such an awesome dude. I just no longer feel it. And it was
Mhm.
hard to break up and walk away for the same reason that it's like, oh, you didn't do anything bad though.
Right.
Right. And even like family members too, like same thing. It's like they're not bad people. It's just like, oh, I'd rather keep my distance. Like I'm okay with that.
Yes. Yes. You
No
got to save
reason,
your
just
own energy.
yeah, exactly. So we have
And it,
about a minute left. I would
yeah,
love
do your
to,
cards.
yeah, I would love to like pick a card.
Pick a card.
So let's see. So this will be with the intention of wrapping our conversation up and sending people who are watching and even like ourselves something to go with after this. So let's see. Okay. I want to practice more pulling out cards. And this is the perfect way to do it. Okay.
It totally is.
Ooh, it says here, treat your body well.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
exercise, meditate, and massage.
Yeah, and Reiki.
Nice. And Reiki, there you go.
Yeah.
So do that for yourself today.
I think that's
Exercise, even if it's like going for a little walk. It's a
I think that's
gorgeous
perfect.
day outside.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's going to help you.
exercise.
That'll help you get in tune with yourself. So
Exactly. And
make
in those
better
spaces,
choices.
right? When we're like back and forth, it's like exercise is so good. It connects us back to our body.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I think we are out of time. So it was great seeing you, Nereyda.
Likewise. We'll keep in touch.
We will.
Bye, guys.